You're about to speak up, submit work, or try something new, and a quiet, insistent voice starts narrating every possible failure. They'll notice I'm not good enough. I'll look foolish. What if this backfires? That voice steals momentum, turns small risks into paralyzing storms, and makes you postpone, edit, or hide the parts of yourself that matter most. This is not character failure, it's a cognitive pattern, the inner critic. It evolved as a social alert system designed to protect status, but in modern life it often overprotects, transforming helpful caution into chronic self-silencing. Today, I'll teach you a simple science-backed mental routine you can use the moment that voice appears. It's called the 3-question reset: observe, reframe, commit. Each question is short, practical, and tuned to interrupt the storytelling habit of the mind and convert anxiety into a tiny, doable experiment. Use this loop and you'll quiet the critic without trying to crush it, because suppression doesn't work. Instead, you realign your attention, gather evidence, and build muscle memory for brave, calibrated action. Step 1. Observe. What is it asking me to avoid? The first move is not to argue. Notice. Label the voice briefly. That's my critic. Say it silently. Naming internal states is a proven metacognitive technique that reduces emotional intensity and signals the prefrontal cortex to engage. Then ask the question, what exactly does this critic want me to prevent? Is it embarrassment, rejection, loss of status, or being wrong? Answer in one short phrase. This clarifies the threat the critic imagines. Most often, the imagined threat is symbolic rather than catastrophic. Step 2. Reframe. What would I do if my goal was growth, not safety? Once you've observed the critic's ask, pivot to a growth-aligned perspective by asking what a forward-oriented version of your goal would look like. Make the reframe tiny and behavioral. For a presentation, the growth frame might be share one clear idea people can use. For submitting work, ship the draft with one explicit question for feedback. For a social risk, ask one open question and listen. The reframe has 3 qualities. It's concrete, immediate, and compassionate. It doesn't demand perfection, it demands a small, meaningful step. Step 3. Commit. What's one micro step I can take in the next 5 minutes? This is the activation move. Turn the reframe into an experiment with a tight time box and an observable output. Micro steps are specific actions that produce evidence. A sent email, a 1-paragraph draft, a single question asked in a meeting, a 5-minute voice note. The commitment is public to yourself. Write it down or speak it aloud, then do it. The evidence, even ambiguous or small, is what weakens the critic over time. That is the 3-question reset. Observe. What are you avoiding? Reframe. What would growth do? Commit. What can you do in 5 minutes? Let me show you how this unfolds in 3 vivid scenes. Scene A. The draft that never ships. You've edited just one more time for days. The critic whispers, they'll see the flaws. Observe. Label the voice and say, it's trying to keep me safe from judgment. Reframe. What would a growth version of publishing look like? Answer. Ship a draft and ask for 2 pieces of specific feedback. Commit. Set a 5-minute timer, export the file as PDF, and send one message with a single question. The result? You expose work and gain direction to improve it. Scene B. The meeting where you could speak up. You want to offer an idea, but imagine ridicule. Observe. This fear aims to avoid embarrassment. Reframe. My value is to contribute one usable insight. Commit. Raise your hand and offer a single sentence linking your idea to a real metric or problem. If that's too much, ask a clarifying question. Scene C. The social ask. You want to invite a person to collaborate but fear rejection. Observe. The critic expects rejection. Reframe. A healthy ask is low cost and informative. Commit. Send a short message. 2 lines describing the idea and 1 clear invitation to respond if interested. Each micro-step creates new data that disproves catastrophic scripts slowly but reliably. Why this works? A concise neuroscience frame. The inner critic thrives in narrative mode. The default network builds stories about future threats. Observing and labeling uses metacognitive control to detach from those narratives. Reframing activates goal-oriented prefrontal pathways, converting vague fears into explicit instrumental goals. Committing creates a short performance feedback loop that triggers reward circuits with real evidence rather than imagined punishment. In other words, you move from story to experiment. You give the brain a specific test to run. 2 supporting habits make the reset durable. Habit A. The evidence log. Keep a tiny, persistent list, digital note or yellow pad labeled micro-evidence. Each time you execute a commit micro-step, log one line, date, action, and one outcome. After a few weeks, this ledger shows repeated wins and shifts the critic's implicit probability estimates. Habit B, the calibration partner. Choose one person in your circle to be a low-cost accountability partner who will respond to your microship with a single sentence of feedback or an emoji. This external small signal amplifies the reward of action and reduces catastrophic imagination. Implementation. A 14-day training plan. Days 1-4. Use the 3-question reset for any decision that feels uncomfortable. Limit yourself to micro-commits of 5 minutes or less. Log every action. Days 5-10. Increase the stakes slightly. 2 micro-commits per day, and 1 micro-commit must be shared publicly. A post, an email, a snippet. Add the calibration partner on day 6. Days 11-14. Pick one bigger fear and design a chained experiment. 3 micro-commits over 1 week that build toward a meaningful finish. Short talk, draft, prototype. At the end of day 14, review your evidence log, count the attempts, wins, and lessons. Common pushback and practical fixes. Objection 1. I'll simply rationalize the critic away and feel false bravery. Fix. Keep the commits tiny and evidence-based. Real courage is repeatable low-risk action. If you find you're rationalizing, lower the commitment size. Objection 2. This will make me impatient for success. Fix. The evidence log is designed to record partial wins, calibrate expectations by noting learning rather than binary success. Objection 3. It's hard to notice the critic quickly. Fix. Anchor the observed step to a physical cue for 2 weeks, after a notification, before opening an email, or before speaking. Over time, noticing becomes automatic. Advanced variations for persistent self-doubt. Variation A, the compassionate reframe. If the critic is rooted in deep shame, add a short validation before reframing. I'm allowed to be imperfect. I can still act. This soothes the limbic system and reduces defensiveness. Variation B, the data boost. For decisions with measurable outcomes, attach a tiny metric to your commit. For example, I will get 3 responses, or I will record 1 minute of progress, so the feedback is unambiguous. Variation C, the ritualized exit. After completing a micro-commit, perform a 10-second reset. 3 deep breaths and 1 line in the evidence log. Ritualizing closure trains the brain to associate completion with calm and reward. The mindset that sustains the change. See the inner critic as an imperfect protective counselor, not an enemy. The reset doesn't silence the critic forever. It converts it into a data gatherer by asking, what do we know now? Over time, accumulated micro-evidence rewires expectations. The critic's probability of catastrophe falls when actual outcomes contradict its story. The last practical exercise you can do in 2 minutes. Identify one thing you've been avoiding right now. Observe, label the critic, and state what it fears. Reframe. Decide the smallest useful outcome you could produce. Commit. Do 1 visible micro-step for 5 minutes and log it. That single loop is how momentum begins. Finish with this. Consistent tiny acts beat occasional heroic attempts. The 3-question reset is skillful, not grand. Use it as often as you need, and treat each micro-commit as research about what really happens when you act. If you stick with the 2-week plan and keep the evidence log, your inner narrative will change, not because you silenced the critic, but because you taught it through evidence that life is survivable. Learning is normal and your voice matters. Try it now and leave 1 line in your notes. What you observed, your reframe, and your 5-minute commit. Small courage repeated becomes a different kind of self.